ISAF, International Security Assistance Force. In the smoldering ruins of Kabul in late 2001, just weeks after the Taliban were driven from power, the world faced a daunting task: rebuild a shattered Afghanistan. The United States had launched Operation Enduring Freedom in response to the 9/11 attacks, swiftly toppling the Taliban regime that had harbored al-Qaeda. But military victory was only the beginning. Chaos, lawlessness, and insecurity threatened to undo any gains. The international community knew that without a long-term commitment, Afghanistan could quickly collapse into a vacuum ripe for extremism once again. That's when NATO stepped in, launching the International Security Assistance Force, ISAF, its largest and most complex operation ever. Established by the United Nations Security Council in December 2001 and led by NATO from 2003 onward, ISAF's original mandate was limited: secure Kabul and its surroundings so a new Afghan government could take root. But as the insurgency spread and state institutions struggled, the mission expanded, geographically, militarily, and politically. What began as a relatively small deployment grew into a massive multinational force, peaking at over 130,000 troops from 50 countries. ISAF's mission was multifaceted: secure the country, support governance, train Afghan forces, protect civilians, and enable development. NATO troops built outposts in rugged mountains, patrolled volatile valleys, and engaged with communities in forgotten villages. The war was not just military, it was cultural, political, and deeply personal. Soldiers became diplomats, engineers, teachers, and sometimes targets. In the early years, progress seemed within reach. Schools reopened, girls began returning to classrooms, and urban centers saw economic revival. The Afghan National Army began to take shape, with NATO training tens of thousands of recruits. Roads were built, electricity returned to cities, and elections were held. But beneath the surface, the situation remained fragile. Corruption plagued the Afghan government. The Taliban regrouped in rural sanctuaries and across the border in Pakistan. Suicide bombings and IEDs became a grim daily reality. ISAF's most difficult battles were fought in the south and east, places like Helmand, Kandahar, and Kunar, where Taliban influence was strongest. Counterinsurgency operations became the norm, with NATO forces embedding with Afghan units in joint operations. These missions were dangerous and grueling, requiring not just firepower, but an understanding of tribal dynamics, local grievances, and the complex web of loyalties. The mission wasn't without controversy. Civilian casualties, night raids, and drone strikes eroded local support. Critics argued that ISAF lacked a coherent long-term strategy, and that a military solution alone could not bring lasting peace. Others pointed to the immense cost, both in lives and money, of a war that seemed endless. Despite the challenges, ISAF did lay a foundation. By 2011, NATO began transitioning security responsibilities to Afghan forces, shifting its role from combat to support. By the end of 2014, ISAF formally concluded, handing over to a new, smaller NATO mission, resolute support. But the scars of the conflict endured, and Afghanistan remained on a knife's edge. ISAF was more than a military operation. It was a test of international unity, resilience, and resolve. It brought together soldiers from across the world under a single banner in one of the harshest environments imaginable. It tried to bring security, hope, and stability to a country that had known only war for generations. Whether ISAF succeeded or failed is still debated, but its legacy is undeniable. It marked NATO's transformation from a regional alliance into a global security actor. It demonstrated the complexity of modern warfare, where victory isn't won solely on the battlefield, and above all, it stood as proof that when the world is threatened, the alliance can and will act, no matter how distant the threat or how high the cost.